Okay. Hey, Caroline.
Hello.
Let's go ahead and get started. It's just now time. Um, this is a review of chapter 8, and if you will recall, your exam will be coming out tomorrow night. I'll put it out on Blackboard, and like last time, I'll ask you to make a Word copy I'll send you a Word copy. You need to open that up on your own Microsoft Word, answer the questions on the exam, and then send it back to me via the college email. Also, please, everybody remember this. I'm not going to look at papers this time that don't have names on them. Last time it was really difficult. About 10 to 15% of you didn't put your names on your papers, which means I've got to go back through all of the emails and try to find who sent me a paper. So on every page of your exam, please, at the top, at the heading, just type your last name or your full name. Doesn't make any difference as long as I can identify each page as belonging to you. Because I hand copy these things. I hand print these things and look at the hard copy of your paper. It's much easier to grade and see what you're doing and be appreciative of your hard work when I can look at the hard copy. So I print these out, and if I can't tell after I print it who did the paper, then I've got to do 10, 15 minutes of research on each paper. And that takes away from the time that I can grade honestly. So please put your name on every page of your paper at the top. Please do that. It'll make life easier for us all. Like I say, that will be coming out tomorrow evening, tomorrow night, and it will be due in 1 week. And as the last time, if you got any pressures, I know some of you are under extraordinary pressure, and I'm appreciative of that. And if you need more time, please ask for it. Just don't assume that you will get the time, though. You need to ask for it. All right, one of the things I'm going to do this time that I haven't done before is I'm going to actually put the physical copy of the textbook on the screen for you. Now, your textbook, some of you I know have the paper copy of the textbook. Some of you have the free, well, nothing's free, but the available text, e-text. Now, the text is exactly the same. The pagiation, the way the thing is organized is different, but the headings are all the same. You'll just have to flip through the reader on the e-text in order to come to the bold type headings that I will actually show you on the physical text. So let's get started with that. Here is the beginning of the text, Kant and deontological theories. Now, please remember that our definition of deontology is different than Professor Poyman's definition of deontology. He does not go into any depth into the material on the adequate definition of deontology in Immanuel Kant. He simply presents a snapshot of American academic philosophy, which is, for the most part, has a deficit and the true understanding of Kant. So remember from the last lecture, the time I spent explaining deontology from the Greek word deon, which is the word not for duty, but for necessity. It has a logical and mathematical sense to it that our term duty does not. When we hear the word duty, we think of military service. That's not the word in Greek for military duty. Deon is your duty to come up with the right answer. So if you got 2 and a plus and another 2 and an equal sign, it is your deon to answer for. It's that sense of duty. So it's a mathematical precision. That is what Kant is after here. So Kant's understanding of ethics is far more physics and far more mathematical than anything that we've covered so far. So please keep that in mind when you see this word deontology. It should trigger your remembrance of this ain't necessarily what Dr. Poeman says. Now, like I've said before, this is the best textbook that there is, but it's still not exactly right. So take a look at these pages.
I would never have gone.
Now,
I know.
at the very first, we come across.
All right. You want me to put this in the fridge?
We had.
All right.
That we had at.
I just gotta answer somebody's light here. You know.
Somebody needs to. Somebody needs to mute their microphone.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Yeah. I can't thank you enough, but I'm gonna still say thank you. You're welcome. All right.
Okay. So here is our discussion of rationalism and empiricism. Now, I spent a lot of time on a couple of lectures talking about this. Poeman spends just a couple of pages here discussing this. But pay attention to this discussion of rationalism and empiricism. And make sure you understand our lectures.
Is Hyman? You want to sit over here? They're going to clean the dining room.
Right. Now,
they're going to clean it. They're going to clean it.
The next heading that we here is act
and
intuition. Remember, act and rule utilitarianism. So this is another type of act and rule. Intuitionism and not utilitarianism. So make sure that you keep that in distinction. This is not what we discussed in the last chapter on Mill and Bentham. Well, I mean, it's Mill that talks about act and rule utilitarianism. But also keep in mind here that even though Poeman is assuming that this has to do with Kant, that Kant is not an act or a rule intuitionist. We're going to discover in the next couple of weeks when we get into Kant and Aristotle and into Plato and Aristotle and St. Thomas. Some of those guys are intuitionists of a special character, but again, it's not like this discussion here. So read that. I may ask you a question about why Kant is different than act and rule intuitionism. Okay, there's a couple of pages on that heading. Now, this is the crucial thing in Immanuel Kant right here. the categorical imperative. So when you come to these pages here, this is where you need your antennae need to go up. This is the most important thing about Immanuel Kant, the categorical imperative.
So now that I'm thinking about going to I just
for Kant,
I'm gonna talk to them.
It's almost like the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But for Kant, it begins with being true to yourself. That's the first thing you have to do. And only when you're true to yourself can you then be true to other people. So it is a double action here on the basis of Kant. So it is so act, the general categorical imperative, so act in everything that you do, that you would be willing for that decision that you just made to be absolute and universal for all people in all places and in all times. So it would be a rule for everybody. You should be willing to say, when you make a decision, that you wish that everyone for all places and all times would make this exact same decision. So that's essentially, in 25 words or less, what the categorical imperative is. But be sure you read this, because his discussion of categorical imperative is actually very good. So that's one of the good things about Poimon's text. He seems to grasp the categorical imperative. Now, look within that section on the categorical imperative, there is a section that says hypothetical versus categorical imperatives. Make sure that you know the distinction between a hypothetical and a categorical imperative. There are a couple of pages on that. Now, make sure that you understand the principle of law, the principle of the law of nature. Now, he gives 4 examples here. These examples are weak thinking. I'm not so much interested in you understanding his examples. They are simply ill thought out as far as I'm concerned, and sometimes silly. I don't,
what time is
he didn't think through this as far as
10 more minutes.
I can tell. Carolyn, do you have a question?
Yes. Can you mute people?
Yeah, I can. I'm going to ask you that you mute yourself. I've got a couple of people here that are not muted. So I'd like you to mute yourself now. If you don't, I will have to mute you because you're interfering with the video. Okay, not done it. All right, I'll be muting a couple of people here. All right. That should make it better, Caroline.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So you hear me here?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Make sure that you understand this principle of the law of nature right here. Not necessarily the examples. Now, I want you to read through the examples, but I also want you to understand that these examples are bad examples. And you can try to process that on your own. But just keep in mind, understand me here. Make sure that you know this principle of law of nature, because there is probably going to be a question on that. Not necessarily on his examples, because his explanation of this, frankly, is terrible. So but the principle is important. And I'll be talking about this later on when we skip to other people, because Kant is absolutely right about this. All right, so that's that section. Then we go over here to counterexamples of the principle of the law of nature. Read through that. But again, since his examples and his counter examples, I don't think are adequately worked out, I don't necessarily want you to pay much attention to the truth of his counter examples if you follow what I'm talking about. But anyway, read through that. Just don't study it. You don't have to study it as carefully as you do some other parts of the text. Okay. Let's see where we are here. I don't know why. Yeah, here we go. There's a section here, other examples, other formulations, the categorical, the comparative. Read through that carefully. That's important. He goes on for several pages here. Here is one of the most important sections in the book, the principle of autonomy. This is the most important thing about Kant. And let me make a few notes for you here. In many ways, Kant is a radical. I don't mean that about a subversive radical. He is. There's no other person in the history of philosophical thinking that has made the individual as important as Kant. The individual knower is the most important thing in the world. All truth, in many ways, is dependent upon individual knowledge. Now, remember how we get to general knowledge in Kant. We check up with each other, right? So we check up. Do you see that table? Yes, I see that table. How many people see that table? 25 people see that table. So there is a table. We don't get to knowledge without you. Science doesn't exist without the individual scientist who does the work. Individuals do the work. And we need to be true to ourselves, number one, and only then can we be true to others. There is a statement in Kant, and my teacher, my beloved professor, wrote a textbook entitled In Defense of Anarchy. And he didn't mean like mayhem in the streets. He simply meant, this is true of Kant, I think, the absolute autonomy of the individual. always takes precedent over any authority. That's extremely important for Kant. He really is a true Democrat. I don't mean the party, but a true defender of the person. Sometimes I have, and this might be something you want to do, sometimes read, I'm going to put the German here, was ist Aufklärung? What is enlightenment? It's one of Kant's early essays, but it does more to sum up his thinking than probably anything that he did before or after. Everyone tracking with what I say here? You are important. You are the significant decider of your life. You need to take responsibility for yourself, number one, and then take responsibility for others, number two. Now, we often talk about doing this for our families, but for Kant, the humanity is our family. Seriously, we need to take responsibility for humanity, for ourselves and for humanity. First, be true to yourself and then be true to others. All of his philosophy, all of his thinking points in that direction. So that's, in a few more than 25 words, this principle of autonomy that we talked about here in the textbook. So make sure you know that. Make sure you keep in mind what I've said about that. And I can guarantee you there's going to be a question about that, because that is essential Kant. That simply is who Kant is. And keep in mind that you number one are responsible for your life. No one else is. And only you can take responsibility for others. And we have a good society only when all of us, number one, take care of ourselves, and number two, after we've established ourselves, take care of other people. Make sense? That's the way to goodness. That's not just the way to morality. That is the only way to a good society. That's the only politics anyone should know, according to Immanuel Kant. Responsibility to self and responsibility to others. And that, my dear friends, is not politics, it is logic as far as Kant is concerned. That is simply the way the world works. Yeah. Somebody have a question? Okay. That's simply the way the world works. And that is a physical law and not just guesswork. So in many ways, I've asked the question before on the exam, what does Kant's ethics have to do with physics? And that's simply the answer to that, because the law of self is the only way that we gain knowledge, whether it be physics or ethics. So the noble scientist and the noble moral person are the two people that move science along and move morality along. I hope that makes sense. I consider him to be, in many ways, the greatest, not just thinker,
Say that
but
again.
moralist of all time. Right. All right, let's see now where we're going here. We've got the problem of exceptionalist rules. You can skim over that if you like. Then we come to this right here. Ross and prima facie duties. So I'm going to wait while the camera catches up. There we go. So this is Sir David Ross. Sir David Ross is a rule intuitionist. Remember our discussion of first start when we started. And as we've said, Kant is not. Dr. Poyman has confused these two. He's confused Kant with an intuitionist. Kant's not, but he does have the concept of prima facie duties, and that is very similar to Ross, even though they're both coming from a different metaphysic or a different ontology. They're where they end up is basically the same, and that's the reason you need to pay attention to Ross and prima facie duties here. Okay, there's a couple pages of that. And then over here, there is Kant and prima facie duties solution, right? Pay attention to that. And that's basically it. There's a couple of more pages in the textbook, but they don't necessarily garner your full attention. So let me open the discussion now. If you have a question either about what we've covered or about the process of the exam, you need to unmute yourself and ask the question.
Hello, Dr. Kent.
Yes, sir.
I didn't catch the very first minute. What were you saying as far as a paper for the next exam?
I use the term paper and exam interchangeably. So that's just my way of talking. I'm going to send out the exam/paper questions tomorrow night, and you need to in your own Word, in your own Microsoft Word processor, answer the questions, save a copy, and send me the copy.
Yes, sir.
Now, last time, the most important thing is put your name on every single page of your paper. The second thing is a lot of people sent me some kind of, I don't think anybody I've got online right now did, but numerous people sent me some kind of either college Office 365 paper or anyway, I couldn't open it because I didn't have access to your account. So make sure that you have a public copy of what you send me so that I can open it. If I can't open it, I can't read it and you don't get credit. I went through headaches and hell the last time trying to get some people to get me a copy. Some of you were a week late getting me a copy that was openable. Don't make that mistake again. I'm not going through that level of interaction this time to get a copy of the paper. If I can't read it, you get a 0. So make sure that your Microsoft Word, you send me the actual document and not, you know, own your personal server someplace. It will not open it because of privacy issues. Okay.
Yes, sir. Second question. As you did before on exam 1, will you hold help sessions to explain different parts? Will we go through that? Will you help with that? I know you don't want to give away too much. You already said you pretty much given away the whole kit and caboodle in explaining things to us, but it definitely helps in understanding ideas. And
I may do, Charles, I may do a help session, let's see, maybe Monday or Tuesday. Just send out a Zoom meeting saying if you got any questions, come on and ask. But let's suffice it to say that if you have any question anytime, you may shoot me an email and we can either talk about it on email, or if we need to speak in person, we can do a Zoom session. So next Monday or so, maybe I come on to send out a general meeting invitation. And if you have any questions, just pop on that. And ask your question. Or if you can't wait till then, just send me a private email or send me a personal request or a Zoom session. I'll be glad to set one up. I'm trying to do this just like we were actually meeting together or could have office hours. That's the whole purpose of what I'm trying to do here, to trying to keep things as normal as possible in these strange and abnormal times. That's the reason that, you know, I open this up for Zoom office hours, offer other different time frames for people to come on and ask questions.
Dr.
Okay.
Last thing, you have, as you just said, 2 other instructors, but you have went far and above and beyond duties required. You are really putting forth the effort to explain this very difficult subject to us, and I really appreciate it because I really want to understand it. So I think your approach is so much different and so much better than some other instructors during these difficult times.
I don't know about that, Charles, but I will say, I'm not saying I'm any kind of genius, but all of you didn't think you were going to be able to do philosophy. And according to the last exam that you took, you're all much better at this than you thought you would be. I don't know if that's due to me or due to the fact that you're all geniuses, but everybody did a really good job on this. And you're right, it's a difficult topic. It's not basket weaving, and but it can be done, and you guys have done a good job on it. As long as you, and you don't have to attend these physical Zoom sessions if you don't want to, but you do need to read. I mean, you do need to listen to the videos, because especially this time, most of the exam questions are coming from the videos and not the textbook. Last time it was like 3-to-1 or more textbook. This time it's mostly going to be at least half and half lecture, video, textbook. Simply because the textbook is not on top of its game here when it comes to Immanuel Kant, especially. That's the reason. All right. Anybody else got any questions? So expect a Monday help session announcement Sunday afternoon or something like that. And if you got any questions after you've looked over the exam and thought about it, cried about it, whatever, come on and we'll set your mind straight. All right. Again, I want to thank you for being at these videos, and I know many of you have sent me personal messages about the difficulty that you're having, and I'm sorry for that. I wish that were not the case. I know you're working hard. You're doing extraordinary in these difficult times with your families and with your studies, and that is not easy, and I commend you for that, and I try to give you every benefit of the doubt. Okay, no more questions. We will say goodbye until Monday time. So everybody have a good weekend.
Thank you.
And if you're on Medicare, this is important.